Welcome to another episode of the DADE podcast. I'm Nick Jiménez. I am joined by Sirena Andras. Saying that right? I don't know if you like Sirena, if we're doing...
Sirena or Serena, both work.
Sirena Andras. She is principal, right? Founder of Creative Chi, marketing consultancy. You're a B Corp. We'll talk about what that means.
Yes.
And a lot of your work deals with sustainability and how you bring that into your business practices. We'll be talking about that. And also how some of that applies to your own life, even outside of whatever your business might be. But before we get into that, and I remember the last time we met, I mentioned that this was one of our sponsors. I'm going to drop a mention of Bandago. So Bandago offers affordable, handcrafted, reversible dog bandanas for your fur family members based in Gainesville, Florida. They handcraft and ship your favorite Bandago styles straight to your front door. Available in XS, S, M, L, and XL, although I don't know what an XL dog is, like where the lines are. They have sizing charts on their website. You can go there. Your dog is naked. Everybody is super pissed about it. You need to solve that problem. Put a bandana on your dog. Use promo code DADE20, that's DADE20, for 20% off of your first order. Maybe not the most sustainable product imaginable, dog bandanas, but they're fun.
Could be.
I guess. Could be. Maybe, yeah.
Could be.
It is reusable, right?
Yeah, and it depends on your supply chain.
There you go.
It could totally be.
Yeah. So that's as good a segue as I can imagine from dog bandanas to what you do. Give us a little bit of an intro for those who are totally unfamiliar with what B Corps are. So tell us about your business and what it is that makes it a B Corp.
What I do is, my business is Creative Chi, and basically we're a branding agency, and I like to say I'm a conscious branding agency. So I like to work with brands that have some sort of conscious element. And what I mean by conscious is sort of awake, aware, understanding that your business has an impact on people and planet, and that you do things in your business to help that be a positive impact that you have.
Sure.
So I am B certified corporation. There's a distinction. There are Florida benefit corporations, which pretty much anybody can be. You just tell the state that that's what you want to be, and that here's what you're doing in order to be a benefit corporation other than making money, whatever that is for your corporation. It could be any kind of social impact, environmental impact. The certification, where the B Lab comes in, is certifying your corporation as such. So it's kind of like a USDA organic stamp for a conscious business. I use the word conscious. Other people might use social impact, sustainable. There is a plethora of words. Personally, I like conscious business because it's just an awareness that your business has an impact.
Right. So in terms of what Creative Chi does, I imagine this is a little bit different from what that ends up meaning for other companies, because you are in the business of ensuring that your service to other businesses. Right. I guess your business itself has, you do things in a sustainable way, but are you also bringing some of those practices to your clients and their processes?
I kind of do both. So okay. I have clients that I call pre-consciousness, and I try to have them adapt or look at what they can do to become more conscious. And then my conscious clients are already doing it, and I'm just helping spread the word.
Okay.
As a branding person, really, it's about messaging and having your brand look and sound a certain way so that you connect with the people who this is important to.
Right. So what does that end up meaning for you in particular, as a marketing consultant?
Right. So my corporation, I have a give back portion.
Okay.
I also try and use all local vendors when possible, and or minority, women-owned. So I look at the vendors that I'm using and what are their impact. And if I can use a printer that's using sustainable inks versus the run-of-the-mill inks,
sure,
then I try to use them. So it's looking at my supply chain and what I can do. And of course the recycling and how green am I in my own business, looking at all of that and measuring all of that. B Corp certification is about measuring and quantifying the things that you want to be doing.
Are there competing certifications for this? In other words, how wide does the certified B Corp net go, and how close does that bring somebody to an an idea of where like the broader state of sustainable business might be, let's say in this country?
So the cool thing about being a certified B Corporation, it is the only certification about how you run your business.
Okay.
So there are certifications for fair trade, there are certifications for, forest sustainable, there's endless certifications for individual products. But B Corp is the only certification on how your business is run. So you can run your business in the way that you see fit as long as you score certain points. So in order to be a B Corporation, you go through the assessment and you get 80 points at least. Okay. You can get those points where you want them, whether it be social impact, living wages, sustainability, eco. There's plenty of different ways to attain those. It's what fits with your model.
Sure. And we were talking earlier before the cameras turned on about, for instance, California having way more certified B Corps than, say, Florida. Give me a sort of, to the extent that you can, and I know that I'm treating you a little bit as if you were a representative of the B Corp people, and I know you're not. But you just came.
I kind of am for Miami.
Okay, well there you go. So
I have taken that mission on.
So we said it was what, something like 300 some odd in California versus say 20 in Florida.
About 300 B certified corporations in Florida.
Yeah.
Some of the, in California. Some of the biggest ones are there. Patagonia, I think.
Okay.
I don't want to give somebody a new home, but there's some important ones.
You mentioned Dannon. I don't know if they're in California.
Dannon is actually in. I just met with them. They're in Colorado.
Okay.
Colorado has a great movement.
Yeah.
They're doing awesome too. I don't know how many they have, but there was definitely a lot of people from Colorado represented at the summit last week.
So more broadly, are there other like hotspots of B Corp activity elsewhere in the country?
There are, but I cannot.
Okay.
I can't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head
Sure,
where they were.
sure.
I did a study a while ago, but
Yeah.
Florida is definitely lagging. We have about 20 B Corps today certified in the entire state.
And how much of that do you think is because people have not adopted or are very far from adopting certain practices? And how much of that would you say is because maybe they're not even aware that a certification like this exists? Like I imagine there must be some pool of businesses or people who are either already there or who are just like almost there, or they're end inches away from being able to qualify for this.
There are people running their business consciously,
Right.
Definitely. I run into them all the time in Miami, and I say, "Hey,
Yeah.
let me show you this little thing called a B Corporation,
Yeah.
so that you can have, being a branding person, I like the icon. I like the fact that I can walk into a store and turn a box around, and there's the B logo, and I'll buy that product over one that doesn't have it."
Sure.
What's the original question?
Oh, so the question was.
I got lost.
Yeah. The question was just, sort of looking for a general sense of among the people who are not certified, what is the pool of people like who are running their businesses sustainably and are maybe already there or almost there? And you sort of answered the question without realizing you answered the
So
question.
there's two ways to do this whole conscious business thing,
Yeah.
and one of them is marketing, and one of them is certification process. And if you are on top of your supply chain and you can do this through marketing and say, here are the people that put my product together, and I personally know them, and I personally visit the factory, and I know it's fair trade, or here's my grower of coffee or tobacco or whatever it may be, and I personally know them, and I know the supply chain, and you can do that through marketing. The other avenue is certification, and certification is, to me, it feels a little bit more brand worthy.
Okay.
Is that the word I'm looking for? It's easier. It's a get. There's plenty of people that are doing organic products and not certifying them because it is a cost and it's an additional people expense. So they might be growing these things, and they do tell you through their marketing avenues. But sometimes that message also gets lost.
Sure.
Where if they have an organic stamp, it's foolproof.
At least for me, and you've heard some of the podcasts. You have some sense of I don't want to say like where I'm coming from or whatever, but I don't know that I'm generally like the target market of how some of this stuff is communicated. And yet, when when I think about these things for any like extended period of time, I guess what I end up finding is that some of the campaigns or people or businesses that may want to have me buy in to messages about sustainability and obviously have that convert into some kind of action or whatever, are not necessarily speaking my language, right? So as a marketing person, what's your general sense of how certification programs like these are perceived, and what, if anything, can be done without changing the end game to have that message resonate with more people? And this is not let me just sort of, this is not a knock on you, but like I'm one of those people who like, I know you and we've exchanged a bit, but like if we had just never met and somebody just told me, do you think that you might be doing business with somebody with chi in the name? I'd probably say, yeah, I don't think so. Like I've never been within 5 feet of a yoga studio, like so talk about how that stuff is communicated and what can be done, if anything, to have it reach a broader audience without, you know, and appeal to more people.
So the B Corp, my business aside, the B Corp mission is much broader and appeals to a much larger demographic. You know, Ben & Jerry's is a B Corp. Patagonia is a B Corp. Dannon is B Corp. And I guess why should you care that they are? Because I just think it promotes well-being in general, whether it's, you know, environment and sort of protecting and cleaning up and doing what we can to not dirty it more. And if it's with people, helping, you know, it's social impact, maybe it's equality, or maybe it's just paying people living wages.
Sure.
You know, so, and basically it's taking the onus off of the government. So one of the reasons that I doubled down on my B Corp mission was that I felt like it's not going to get done through policy. The world that I want to see is not going to get done through policy. So I'm going to back away and do what I can in my own business and hope that other consumers that want to see these changes will vote with their dollars every day with everything that they buy. So you're seeing companies that are taking it on themselves to fix things that other people are shouting that the government should fix. Forget it. Let's just go the B Corp route. And you can support who you want doing what you want.
Sure.
So you know that one company stands for, well, Ben & Jerry's is actually very political and activist.
Sure, yeah.
And if you know, spend your dollars there, and if not, spend them somewhere else.
Right. And I think that there's a lot to that. As we were talking earlier about, you know, that some of these problems, even if the solutions are similar, the particulars and the nuances are going to vary, whether it's by business to business or place to place or economy to economy, right? If we're talking about different tax structures and different whatever. So I think that there's something to that. Have you, in your own, you know, you've, I imagine, tried to sell a lot of people on this idea. What are some of the places that you found pushback, and how do you respond to that?
Well, in Miami, this is a very new thought. So usually there's an education process, but most of the people that are open to this, once they understand what it is, they're all for it. The certification process is lengthy, it's time consuming, it requires people power. So a lot of organizations don't go through that just because of that right there. But I think that there's a lot of open minds to it. In my business, I had to do it. Like, I wanted to be the change that I wanted to see. And I thought, I want to work with all these amazing companies that are creating a difference, right, in the world.
Sure.
So how was I going to be in integrity with that? It was to become certified and say, this is where I make my stand. Will you join me? Right.
Yeah, and it lends a certain legitimacy and credibility to people who, it sort of gets them in the door faster on that message. I remember, so when we first met, I was kind of hiding behind the equipment for Jonathan's Waking Up in the 305 podcast. And one of the things that I remember coming up in that conversation was, and I'm not going to even bother trying to quote anybody because this was a long time ago, but the subject of the costs that are built in to some of these things, right? So, the most tangible, and this is where I want to kind of transition to talking about how this might be applied to the person who's watching or listening to this who doesn't have a business to contextualize this stuff. But suppose that you're in a grocery store. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember you bringing up what I thought was a very rational and actually refreshing point. And this is part of where like I felt like, okay, this is what's missing from some of the versions of this message that don't resonate with me is, look, I'm not going to pay 10 times the price for strawberries if my kid ends up not wearing shoes because of it. Like,
Absolutely.
So what are some of the, sort of speaking very broadly on the business and on the personal end, where are some of the places where you see, it would be great if we could make these changes, but right now the costs are too high, and so other advances need to be made? I think it would be great to just, in terms of in the business context, but also just in your personal life, because I'm sure that doing this for a living, you end up sort of framing a lot of your personal stuff.
Yeah,
through that.
There is a divide between people that can afford this and people that can't. One day, hopefully, it will be across the board,
Sure.
But we're not there yet. We're not.
And that's the direction most things move, right? I mean, everything, maybe not everything, but so many things start as like a thing that has limited, people have limited access and,
We recently had one of our conscious entrepreneurs roundtable at a establishment on South Beach, and they had gone all bioplastic.
Okay.
And that is an increased cost. And we talked about how we would really like to see no single-use plastics on Miami Beach at all. And this would be like an amazing thing because we live on this little barrier island and the plastic ends up in the ocean. And we all know that story.
Yeah.
Bamboo or something, that's completely goes back to the earth would be even more amazing. Or there are other options. But there's a cost increase. So if we could get every single restaurant on Miami Beach on board, we could probably drive the price down.
Sure.
But until that happens, and until these things are mass produced,
Right.
so that we can use them, every restaurant has to do sort of what it can, where it can.
Yeah. Where do you see the biggest opportunities? And again, trying to frame it in terms of, and I think that plastics and things like, getting people to switch bags or issues of policy and bans and stuff, that's one of those things where, there's, it affects both the supply and the consumption side, but there is a lot of controversy. Do you see areas of opportunity for, or maybe like a reluctance to buy in? Do you see areas where there's opportunity, where there's already sort of a consensus, whether people are conscious of it or not? Are they like low-hanging fruit for change?
Well, look at straws.
Okay.
I think everybody jumped on that bandwagon and said, oh, we don't need straws. What the heck do we need straws for?
Right. Or at least enough people,
let's
certainly.
Let's go paper, or let's go, So I think that single-use plastics are something that we can maybe agree to reduce, if not eliminate, on some level, shift. I think that's an easy get. But it's personal. It's on you. Like, bringing your coffee mug with you.
Sure.
Bringing my shopping bags with me. It is on me. If I'm not conscious to it, aware of it.
Sitting here with this paper cup like an asshole.
But it's paper. So
Okay.
So it may have been made out of recycled paper.
I'm going to cut it up and take notes on it later.
Paper's somewhat
Sure.
environmentally friendly.
Yeah,
It's not going to go into the ocean and
Right.
Kill a turtle
Right.
and stay there forever.
Yeah.
The cat might, but
Hide this. Let me put this away.
we're where we are where we are.
Yeah.
Would I love to see more and more businesses try and make the shift? Yes. And that's part of my mission, is just to educate and say, hey, what can you do where? Even if it's little things like not, freely giving out straws and having somebody request them, or having a paper option, or eco-friendly cups, or, hoping that people, carry this around.
Yeah.
Because single-use water bottles that's a bad one.
Sure.
That's a bad one.
Sure. Yeah, I know, actually in a, not past podcast, but we did a story on DADE Mag about, and maybe you've seen this, I know it was floating around, the New Times, I think, did some coverage of him, so did Nootropic. Andrew Otasso, who's this guy who was sort of taking it upon himself to clean up Bear Cut Preserve in Key Biscayne.
Oh, cool.
And he goes out on his own. I want to say he's cleared like 3 tons of trash from the mangroves.
Wow.
And a lot. So I went out with him and I spent a day with him cleaning up and filming him and the whole thing. And a lot of it is plastic. I mean, there's tons of plastic. You also find some really weird stuff out there.
I've done some cleanups. Yep.
Yeah. So that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it is plastic cups. All the single-use plastics that you might imagine are out there. So one thing that I think you were just at this conference, and I'm curious to know whether you found, having spoken to people from all over the country who are dealing with these issues, I wonder whether we talked about Florida having sort of a dearth of these B Corps, and it sounds like you were saying that just even outside of the certification, just in terms of consciousness of these issues and commitment to them and having it important to people, that maybe Florida lags behind a bit there too, or at least Miami might. I'm sorry, but how much of that do you think, if any, might have to do with demographics? And by that I mean that you're from Spain. So much of the Miami population is from Latin America, and I wonder whether it's that so much of it is an immigrant population where they're coming from contexts that they may not be as accustomed to thinking about some of these sustainability issues. In my day job at Cigar Snob, for instance, I spend tons of time in Latin America, especially Nicaragua, where there's a huge population here from Nicaragua. Been to Cuba several times. So Nicaragua and Cuba, just those two, you go to these places and it's not always like you're walking around on the street and thinking like these people are keeping the place clean,
Yeah.
And so I wonder how much of it is that. How much of it is that we're dealing with populations of non-native people who are coming from cultures where it's just not necessarily something they're beat over the head with all the time.
There's definitely a cultural divide in people that are sort of surviving.
Sure, right.
And
and even when you're not, you might still have that mentality.
They're not. It's something that's not in the front of their mind. The front of their mind is survival, make money.
Right.
The rest of the stuff is superfluous. Those of us that are privileged to be able to think about that need to do double duty.
Sure, sure.
The LATAM thing, the Latin America thing, is actually quite shocking because I thought like you at first, and then realized that places like Chile have an incredible amount of B Corps.
Okay.
So they're doing the work.
Although economically, Chile's sort of an outlier, right?
True.
But I think it illustrates the point, right? I mean, we also have Chileans make up a much smaller percentage of the Latin population in the U.S. But I think it's interesting to note that of Latin American countries, Chile has a higher concentration.
Yeah, and I don't know what the number is, but I know they're blowing us away by.
Sure. Blowing the U.S. Florida. Okay. Yeah.
So I thought that too because people started coming up to me and asking me why I didn't do some of this stuff in Spanish, and I thought I didn't realize there was an audience. And the more I've delved into the whole B Corp thing, and I might go to the summit in Latin America next year rather than go to the one in California.
Sure.
Because in California, I mean, those guys are amazing, but they got it. They got it covered. So it's interesting.
Well, and that may even be an opportunity for impact in Florida. So many of these Latin American-based companies are doing business here, and I imagine if they're implementing these things company-wide, I mean, how much of the economic activity in Miami, for instance, is Latin American banks and that sort of thing.
All kinds of stuff.
So yeah. So let's talk about what are some of the things that you do personally, right? When your creative chi hat is off.
So, not creative, not through my business,
right.
but
Just in your own
what
personal,
I do.
right? Trying to make this.
Well, I'm, a conscious coffee snob. I pretty much bring my coffee with me wherever I go.
Right.
I always have some sort of a container on me, and I'm a little bit diligent about that, or a lot bit. My children will come home sometimes with plastic water bottles, and they hide them, try to go to the recycling bin, because they know that in our house, there is no reason to have a one-use plastic water bottle.
Right.
I buy plenty of containers. They put them in their book bags. They keep your water cold for 12 hours straight. Why do you have a plastic water bottle?
So if your kids are ever like hiding their weed from you, it'll be in a nice bamboo box or something.
Then it'll be excusable at least.
What is this Ziploc bag?
Unfortunately, I do still have to use some Ziploc bags.
Sure,
but,
yeah.
I try. So
Yeah.
whatever I can do, I do. Wherever I can shift, I shift. I try not to go too insane.
Right. Which was going to be my next question: is where don't you, and where have you found? And not only for the sake of illustrating, like, okay, this, but also because I think it's important to know. I think most people kind of, whether intuitively or because they've just been exposed to enough of this stuff, know where the obvious opportunities are for changing their own daily practices. But I wonder where, somebody who's thinking about this sort of thing more frequently has found, like, okay, there just isn't a viable option that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, I mean, a lot of this stuff is, for me anyway, right? All of this boils down to some form of economics. And when the cost is too high of abandoning Ziploc bags, that also means that, the money you're saving using Ziploc bags might be money that you can put toward, I don't know, organic produce or something like that. And if you're spending way too much on whatever your food storage is, that leaves you with, less of it. So where are some of the things that you've found, okay, it just doesn't make any sense. I have to hold off on changing here.
For me or for the general
for
population?
you personally, but I imagine the things that are tough for you personally will almost certainly, be the difficult for everyone.
The shopping bag thing was easy.
Okay.
The first few times I forgot my shopping bags and, felt terrible using the plastic. But at the rate of about 350 bags per year per person,
right.
And all you have to use is, remember to bring your reusable bags.
Right.
That one's an easy one. I feel like that's a no-brainer. This is easy. Then there are things that are a little bit more difficult. Ziploc bags. I tried some products that are reusable and I didn't like them.
Okay.
So
what are the reusable alternatives to Ziplocs?
So they have these lovely wax things that you can sort of wrap your fruit and your food in.
So like a wax paper?
It's like a wax paper.
Okay.
But I personally am not fond of them.
Okay.
So I keep looking and I keep searching. Like I have these reusable bags for produce too. They're sort of like these little mesh bags, so that I don't have to use the plastic ones that are at Publix or wherever I am. What are the other little things? There was something that actually was driving me nuts. Wet wipes for the bathroom. So these things are individually, wrapped in plastic, and then they have more plastic around them.
Yeah.
One of the companies has decided to even have a little plastic hard lid on them.
Okay.
And that was the last straw for me. I was like, that's it. This is ridiculous. No more of this. So I've subsequently found out how to make my own.
Okay.
So that basically eliminates a lot of plastic.
Sure.
Because a family of 4, 2 young kids, those things disappear.
Yeah. So before we move on, I have another little plug here. So you met Carlos. This is a shameless plug for my friend and DADE partner, Carlos. Most people think all protein is the same. It is not. Imagine pulling up to a gas station with more than 50 pumps, each with a different quality of fuel and each with a different price. That is the protein marketplace, and it is confusing. Some of the world's top athletes use this same protein that is in Carlito's Whey. See what he did there? Whey, W-H-E-Y, Carlito's Whey. Carlos is big on puns. Carlito's Whey protein is the same stuff that a lot of top athletes use. So why would you take chances? Carlito's Whey, W-H-E-Y. You can go to carlitoswheyprotein.com. You can get 2 pounds of the stuff for $57 and change. And also follow him on Instagram, Carlitos_Whey_protein, where he does his weigh in Wednesdays. And follow Carlos on his wild fitness journey. It's not really that wild. It's basically Carlos and his baby. And he weighs himself in and shows you his workouts. But Carlito's Whey protein, 2 pounds, kind of buying in bulk, which also means less plastic, right? You're not buying these little, there we go. We found a segue back into this thing. So we're pretty close to wrapping up. Is there anything that we haven't touched on here that, especially, this is not necessarily going to an audience that is here because of the sustainability issue, right? So are there things that for the totally uninitiated you want to make sure we mention or that you expose them to?
I guess it's just wanting people to know that there's another way to do business, which is the B Corp thing, and that you can sort of go after these passions of yours, whether it be social impact, saving animals, whatever it could be.
Yeah.
That this can be funneled through your business, and I think it gives us more purpose, and employees are a lot more engaged if that brand mission is matching one of their life visions.
Sure.
So that's one message I'd like to impart, because the whole philosophy of a conscious business or a B business just isn't in the scope right now. So part of what I like to do is educate and show people that there's a different way.
Sure.
As far as sustainability and environment and whatnot, just do what you can where you can. Just be aware of it.
Yeah.
Because awareness is the first step. So every time I go grab, a styrofoam cup, where this is literally going to be in a landfill for eternity.
Right. Yeah. Or do you have recommendations for people? For maybe it's books or documentaries, or hey, you should be following such and such a campaign, or there's an event that happens every so often, go there. Is there something that you would recommend people check out?
In Miami, we have the Conscious Entrepreneurs Roundtable, which meets once a month. And that's sort of I'm a co-founder of that, and that's a nonprofit ground floor basically for bringing these businesses to life in Miami.
Is this like a Miami chapter of something broader, or?
Well, we're starting it here in Miami.
Okay.
So
and the idea
it could be a broader.
So if somebody sees this and wants to sort of recreate or expand this wherever it is they may be.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
That is our goal, is for conscious entrepreneurs to spread as much as possible.
Okay.
But we're starting here because we felt that there was a need, and the people that come to our meetings really are on board with changing the world through business.
Yeah. Is there a book or a documentary or an article or something that comes to mind?
Documentary.
Or maybe like an author that you'd say, like, go check out what this person has done. And I don't know how much there even is out there in this area, right? So.
I don't know. I can't answer that.
Okay.
For the whole B Corp and conscious movement, nothing is coming to me right at the second.
Sure.
There is a gentleman that I just met who is basically running an amazing website that is kind of like an Amazon, but for conscious businesses.
Got it.
And that is donegood.co.
Okay.
So if anybody was trying to shift their purchasing power to somewhere that's making an impact, that is an amazing place to start.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be personally shopping there very soon.
Cool. All right. Anything else that we haven't touched on that you want to get into? If not?
Nothing is coming to me right now.
So then let's just plug all of your stuff. Where can people go to learn more about Creative Chi and whatever else?
CreateChi.com is my website. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, I think, as Creative Chi. And we focus on branding and getting the message across that you're in business for something other than making a profit, that you have people and planet in mind as well. And Conscious Entrepreneurs Roundtable, we meet once a month. You can find us on Facebook, Conscious ER. On Instagram, I think we're Conscious Entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And is that it? Do I have any more businesses?
Cool. So yeah, we'll have links to all that stuff on the page where this podcast is and in the description. I'll plug all of our stuff. You can find us at dademag.com. That's DADEMAG.com. All of our social media stuff is confusing as hell. Instagram is DadeIG. Twitter is DadeTweets. Facebook, DadeMag. You can follow me if you want to see pictures of my dog, I guess, at Nicolás Jiménez on Instagram, Twitter, all the things. I like how I've done a better job of branding myself than this website and podcast and all that. It's more consistent across the board for me, but Dade Mag, Dade Tweets, Dade IG. Subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rating and review while you're there, unless you have mean things to say, in which case go away. And that's it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.